Our two big questions, really, these two, are how can we reach net zero and how can we do it in a modern, sustainable, and digital way?
It's always passion. So when you're really passionate about things, then you're just going to do it.
There's a lot of work ahead of us. So I think, like you said, a lot of us are just starting in the sustainability field.
I have to say it is a challenge for me, but I'm very happy that I have this privilege to take this challenge.
Sustainability is something that you have to sort of know about if you want to work anywhere. I think it's something that all businesses and governments are like thinking about.
So it's like I kind of established my brain image already. So I'm gonna ask Daniel to put his spark into my jar. You can put it. Thanks, Daniel.
Wow, excited. This is 7 sparks now.
Yes.
I see.
Hey guys, today is the 7th episode of Spark for Spark. I'm super excited to tell you guys that I'm finally back to China. And I have Daniel with us today. He is my fellow Yanqing scholar. So would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm from Germany, and I'm currently in the Politics and International Relations track here at Yanqing. Before that, I did my undergrad in Germany, in Berlin, in economics. Spent some time working in the German public sector. Also did some consulting work back in Germany. And before that, I actually grew up in Shanghai. So I spent some time in China as well.
It's a super diverse background. I'm really impressed actually by your past experiences. What leads you onto that international relations track?
Yeah, good question. I think so. I started off in undergrad studying economics, and I think in Germany, economics is a very theoretical thing to study. And so like you said, when I went to the US, I studied in Berkeley for a year, and I picked a lot of courses in politics and international relations there. And I thought the courses there were very practical and had a lot of real life applications. And I thought it was really interesting, sort of the interplay between economics and then, public policy and international relations as well. So after that, I was, very interested in the subject. And then through work experience as well, I mentioned I worked in the German public sector. So I spent some time working in the German parliament for a member of parliament, and there, all of the topics from economics to politics would intersect and kind of be connected to each other. And I think, that's how I got interested in sort of politics and international relations. And then I also spent some time working in the European Parliament, and all of the topics I did there in my work, which we can talk about later, also relating to sustainability, were very interesting to me. And then I thought I wanted to study that at a graduate level. And that's why I applied for Yanqing. And I also, of course, wanted to still learn more about China. And so that's kind of why I'm here now. Yeah.
I really love that you mentioned interconnectedness. So this is what is so wonderful about social sciences, is that you can really see how different topics are connected to each other. You mentioned you did some research related to sustainability, and some of them are energy transition. Do you remember last week we also witnessed this kind of very interesting debate between the Schwarzman scholars and Yanqing scholars? That's also energy transition topic. So they're talking about whether nuclear power is a good thing for us to achieve net zero, right? So I wonder, what's your understanding of energy transition and how do you see the role of energy transition?
Yeah, sure. A big question I think a lot of people are discussing at the moment. And I think, like you said, the debate that we witnessed on nuclear power was one possible option for how we can, reach net zero, how all of the countries who have their different and very ambitious plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think, when I did my research on this, I was working in the European Parliament. And so I was very much looking at things from the European perspective. So Europe has said that they have sort of their twin challenges. One of them is digitalization. The other one is the green transition and net zero. And so for them are two big questions, really. These two are how can we reach net zero and how can we do it in a modern, sustainable and digital way? And a lot of questions there were sort of how can we maybe repurpose sort of old coal power plants into something newer, something that, for example, is like a hydrogen power plant or something like that. So looking at sort of new and more alternative ways to create energy and do so sustainably. So that was a big topic that sort of I was researching on.
Super interesting.
Yeah, and then at the time I remember there were a lot of laws being passed in the European Parliament, of course, about sort of how can European stakeholders sort of manage to deal with this transition? How can, the companies and the people who might be facing higher costs and things like that, how can we support them? So there's also a lot of work that the EU is doing in sort of providing funding and grants so that they can, make projects that try and tackle this, net zero problem, and also sort of help, industries where it might be difficult to decarbonize. It was interesting to see, how it really affects people and what we can do to sort of support them.
As a very junior level scholar, when you're looking into this very broad, very general topics, what's your feeling about that? Are you feeling challenging or feeling scared? What's your attitude towards it?
Yeah, it's a very ambitious thing to do, I think, and there's a lot of work ahead of us. So I think, like you said, a lot of us are just starting in the sustainability field. I think all of us understand that it's a very immediate problem and something that needs to be solved. And I think a lot of us also understand that it's a very big sort of mountain to climb. But I think what I've seen is in the little projects that are happening that things are changing. I think the big question is, can we do it in time? And I think that was something that was also in the debate that we talked about on nuclear power, is how can we manage to reach net zero in the limited time that we have and with the limited resource. I think it's very cool to see all the new projects, but sometimes it's hard to imagine, how can we actually, make these bigger scale and reach more people. And I think that's what is the most challenging part, going forward. Sustainability is something that you have to sort of know about if you want to work anywhere. I think it's something that all businesses and governments are thinking about.
Why not we talk about something more interesting?
Okay.
For example, when you're working in those kind of public sectors, I can feel probably there are some kind of challenges trying to communicate with very senior staff. Because this is what I've encountered when I'm working currently at the UN. So you have to work with people who are way more senior and way more experienced than you. So how do you feel?
I think, it's always going to be a problem, I think. But at the same time, I feel like they like to have young people in the team. They think it's cool to have
fresh new perspectives.
New ideas, new creative ideas. And so I think a lot of, especially the politicians, they're quite old. And sometimes the teams around them are also relatively old. So it's always exciting to have people who are just out of undergraduate or something. They also try to be more in contact with young people. And obviously it's exciting for me to then get to talk to them. So I think it's not as bad as I thought it was. And I think any company, any government, they want to have the next generation, and we are the next generation. So it's sometimes a little bit awkward because obviously there are generational differences. But at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, so I think it's okay. It's not too bad.
I love your perspective.
I don't know how it was for you, but I thought it was okay.
I have to say it is a challenge for me. But I'm very happy that I have this privilege to take this challenge, because not many young people can work so closely with those senior staff. And I'm currently working on a project and I have to lead it. So I will have one-on-one conversations with people who are way more senior than me and persuade them to take my plans. So that I'm very happy that I can really get some training and also get some experience through this whole process. You're such a very impressive young scholar who is able to multitask. So, when we were doing the Things Research Grant last year, right? You're simultaneously working at what is that think tank called?
It's called STEER.
Yes, STEER.
I
can introduce that later. And also you were swimming. You're taking swimming competitions. And then you were did you do an internship? Final papers.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, so how did you do that? How can you become so energetic?
I mean, thank you. I think I can ask you the same question, and I will ask you this after I answer. But I think I've always, especially being at Beida in Yanqing, I think it gives you the chance to explore a lot of things, both academically and professionally, and whatever other interests you have. So I think as long as what you are doing, you feel like it has an impact, then you will do it, and you will be passionate about it, and you don't care if it takes up time, I think. So when we were doing research, I was also working for a student think tank. It's called STEER, the Student Think Tank for Europe-Asia Relations. And it's like a youth-led think tank that helps to bridge Europe and Asia. This was the first year, like I was one of the co-founders together with some other students and young professionals. One of them is also at Yenching. He's from Vietnam. And so, yeah, it was just cool to see like what impact you could have, like if you organize an event about, let's say, nuclear proliferation or about, migration, things like that. And then you bring together young people who can then discuss and talk to experts. I thought it was really cool. Back to your question, I've always tried to be like balanced, like have a balanced lifestyle. So I think I maybe don't put too much focus on on one specific thing, but like multiple things, because I think that way you learn a lot, and it lets you pursue like different interests. So yeah, I don't know. It was fun. I feel like now I'm less busy than I was last year. Because last year, if you remember, we also had the Yenching Symposium.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention.
Yeah. So that also took up time. And this year, I feel like a lot of that is no longer, I'm not organizing the symposium anymore, and I'm only a trustee at STEER, so I don't really do much there either. So it's nice also to take a step back and like focus on my thesis, for example, and job hunting, etc. But I don't know, how do you also do a lot of things? How do you manage that? And I know we've had our thesis recently, you've been working, there's like friends you have to keep up with, travel, etc. How has that been for you?
It's always passion. So when you're really passionate about things, then you're just going to do it instead of you trying to feel like it is draining your power. So for example, I'm doing social media channel. I'm working at the UN during daytime when I was back at the States. Yeah. And then I was working on my thesis at night. So it's like really working 24 hours a day. But I still feel so happy because the things I'm doing are not draining my power, but instead they're like recharging my batteries. So yeah, I love the impacts that I'm creating, and that's how I don't get tired.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask you, like, the last 2 years at Yenching, do you think that's what started your sustainability journey? Or like, how has your sustainability journey connected with Yenching? You know?
Oh my God, you're the first person to ask me a question. Actually started way earlier, before I joined Yenching. Actually, I got into sustainability when I was like working as a workshop trainer at a movers program at UNDP. So it was at that time that I get to know there's a topic called sustainability. My trainees, they feel so inspired and they feel like there are so many things they can do in this field, like entrepreneurship, like youth empowerment. So I feel like this is a topic that is so interesting, so inspiring. I should really look into that. And later, I just gained more and more working and professional experiences in that field. So that's how I get myself onboarded. Yeah.
And now you're back in Beijing. Like, how does that feel? Yeah.
In the past, sustainability was just an interest, but currently it's definitely my career path. Yeah. Actually, if you're a friend with me, then you will definitely know I work in sustainability. So it's like I kind of established my brain image already. Do you remember last year when I was still in Beijing?
Yes. The SDG.
My friends are always like saying SDGs. It's like a joke. But this is so fun. It's like I'm already showing everyone that this is a very cool topic. Let's work on this. There are so many things we can do in daily lives. And then it's really the final question. I feel like you have always been like a role model for me. I'm super impressed by how you will be able to organize your own life and also express your ideas. And then do you have any suggestions for other young people who are trying to find their spark or trying to pursue a career in sustainability? If you're going to give an advice, what would that be?
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, what I would say is, first of all, thank you. What I would say is like, don't be afraid to try things. I think people say that all the time, but depending on what like environment you find yourself in, I think there are always new things you can do, like step outside of your comfort zone. Like don't be afraid, because I think at the end of the day, the people around you and even the people you work with, they are just people. They are just like you. They have their own uncertainties. They also they started somewhere as well. So I think like don't be scared or intimidated by people. And I think just try to do things. If you are passionate and you think you have good ideas in a certain area, then like do your best. Yeah, just do it essentially.
Cool. I love it. Thanks so much. Then let's come to the last section. Is that I'm going to collect your Spark.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not that jar, right? I'm going to take it out right now. Yeah. I bring this jar all the way from the States back to China.
The Spark jar?
Yeah. So this is my jar. Could you hold this for me? So you can write down your Spark.
I see.
And don't let me see it.
Okay, and I just write it anywhere.
Yeah. I'll cover my eyes. So I'm gonna ask Daniel to put his Spark into my jar. You can put it. Thanks, Daniel.
Wow, excited. This is 7 Sparks now.
Yes.
I see. That's
Great,
cool.
great.
All the way from New York.
Yes.
Exciting.
Thank you so much
All right,
for joining us today.
Happy to talk. Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye. See you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.